I'm out here in the woods today. I just finished a hike, and honestly, this is one of my favorite places to think. There's something about getting away from the noise, getting outside, moving your body, and having a little space to actually think. And it got me to thinking about something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough when we talk about American manufacturing: the human cost of the way we've chosen to operate. We talk about productivity, throughput, revenue. We talk about quality and on time delivery, efficiency and lean, and we should. Those things do matter. But there's another metric I think we should care about also. What does it feel like to work here? Because you can have a manufacturing company that hits its numbers and still have a workforce that's exhausted. You can have a company that's profitable and have people going home every night completely drained. You can have a plant that's meeting its quarterly targets while supervisors are spending their evenings worrying about tomorrow's production schedule. Ever have a dream about work? I know I have. Not pleasant. You can have employees who are technically successful, but emotionally they're thinking, how much longer can I do this? And I don't think that's what American manufacturing has to be. Think about what happens when you're constantly fighting production emergencies. The line goes down, someone has to stay late, supervisor gets called in, engineer gets pulled away from another project. Manager starts making phone calls, and someone is trying to find the missing components. Someone else is trying to work out why the process isn't working, and eventually, somehow, everyone gets the product out the door, and everybody goes home. But does that stress actually end when you leave the building? Not necessarily. You think about tomorrow. You're thinking about what went wrong. You're thinking about what you didn't get done. You're wondering whether the same problem is going to happen again. Maybe you're worried about whether the company is going to hit its numbers or about the next restructuring. Maybe you're wondering whether your job will still exist in 6 months from now. And if that happens over and over again, it changes you. You become tired before you even get to work and become reactive, less patient. You start dreading Mondays. You start thinking of Fridays as the finish line, and eventually something that should be a career becomes something you're simply trying to survive. I don't think that's a work ethic problem. In many cases, it's the opposite. These people are working incredibly hard. They're getting everything they have. They're giving everything they have, staying late, solving problems, covering for each other. They're doing whatever it takes. And that's part of what makes this so frustrating, because the people creating these heroic efforts often care deeply about the company. They want it to succeed. They want to be proud of where they work. They want to build something and be part of a winning team. But constantly fighting emergencies isn't the same thing as winning. And it's not reasonable or sustainable. There's also another layer to this: job security. For a lot of American manufacturing workers, there's a cycle that has become almost predictable. The market slows, leadership starts talking about cost, the workforce starts wondering what's coming. People become nervous, rumors start circulating, people guard information, become more focused on their individual position, self preservation. And eventually there may be layoffs. Then the market improves. Everyone works harder. The company grows. People are hired back. And eventually the cycle starts again. We've gotten so accustomed to this that we've started talking about it as though it's simply the natural order of manufacturing. That's just how manufacturing works. I don't accept that. Manufacturing is cyclical. Markets are cyclical. Demand is cyclical. But fear doesn't have to be the culture. And layoffs don't have to be the first response every time the market turns. That's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about the shift from scarcity to abundance. Because when a company is constantly operating at the edge of its capacity, there aren't many options. Everything becomes a crisis, but when you build real capacity into the organization, when you eliminate waste, when you prevent reoccurring problems, when you improve throughput, when you create stronger systems, you create something incredibly valuable: options. And options create resilience. Imagine going to work and knowing my leadership team has a plan. They know what they're doing, or my leadership team has a plan. They know where we're going. They'll tell us the truth. If there's a problem, I can speak up. If I identify a way to improve something, I'm not putting my job at risk. When something goes wrong, we're going to solve the root cause instead of just patching it. I'm part of a team. My contribution matters. I have a future here. And then imagine leaving work at the end of the day and actually leaving work mentally, going home, having dinner, going for a hike, going to your kid's soccer game, working on your house, seeing your friends, getting a good night's sleep, coming back the next day rested and ready to contribute. That doesn't make someone less committed to their job. It can make them better at it. A rested brain solves problems differently than an exhausted brain. A person who trusts their leadership behaves differently than someone who's constantly protecting themselves. A person who feels secure is more willing to share information. A person who feels respected is more willing to speak up. A person who believes they have a future with the company is more likely to invest in improving the company. That's not soft. That's operationally powerful. And this is why I keep saying that the financial results aren't the end goal. Yes, I want to see American manufacturers dramatically increase throughput. Yes, I want to see companies increase revenue. And yes, I want to see American manufacturing become a top global competitor again. But why? Because those results create choices. They create the possibility of abundance. They create the possibility of better wages, possibility of career development, of investing in people. They create the possibility of building reserves for the next downturn, and the possibility of retaining talented people instead of constantly replacing them. And they create the possibility of something that I think we've lost sight of: a career that actually feels like a career, not just a job, not something you're constantly afraid of losing, something that consumes every ounce of your energy. A career where you can grow, contribute, learn, become a leader, build relationships, take pride in what you've accomplished, and eventually look back after 20 or 30 years and say, we built something meaningful together, a legacy together. But here's where I want to speak directly to leaders. If you successfully create abundance, you have an obligation to protect it. You can't build trust and then casually destroy it. You can't tell people that they're part of the future and then make every decision based only on the next quarter. You can't ask employees to give you their ideas and then punish them when those ideas make your leadership uncomfortable. You can't tell people they're valued while constantly operating in a way that leaves them exhausted and afraid. And you can't build a culture of continuous improvement if people believe improvement will eventually be used against them. Leadership has to contribute. Leadership has to create the environment where people believe, if I help this company get better, I get to be part of that better future we're creating. That's the social contract I want to see more of in American manufacturing. Not work hard or we'll replace you, but let's get better together and let's build something bigger together. Think about the ripple effect. One manufacturing company creates a healthier culture. Employees have more stable careers. Families have more predictable outcomes. People are less stressed. Children grow up to see their parents proud of the work they do. Employees have more energy when they get home. They participate in their communities. They buy homes. They spend money locally. They build careers instead of constantly worrying about their next job. Then multiply that by thousands of manufacturing companies. That's bigger than operational excellence. That's an economic transformation. That's why I call this an American manufacturing renaissance. Because I don't just want to improve factories, I want to improve what it means to work in American manufacturing. Sometimes these conversations get framed as, do we take care of employees or do we make money? I reject that choice. I believe the best organizations figure out how to do both. When people trust leadership, when information flows, when problems are solved permanently, when processes actually work, when improvement is rewarded, when employees understand the why, when teams are aligned, the organization becomes stronger, more resilient. And stronger organizations are more capable of producing profitable growth. That's not charity, that's good business. If you're a leader, I want you to think about something this week. Don't just ask, are we hitting our numbers? Ask, what is it costing our people to hit those numbers? How much stress are they carrying home? How many evenings are being disrupted? How many vacations are interrupted? How many people are afraid to speak up? How many employees are quietly looking for another job? How many supervisors are exhausted? How many engineers are spending their time fighting fires instead of improving the system? And perhaps most importantly, how much of that is actually necessary? Because if the answer is, that's just how manufacturing works, I want you to challenge that assumption. Maybe it doesn't have to work that way. Maybe we've simply normalized something that we could change. I don't believe the future of American manufacturing has to be a choice between profitability and people. I believe we can build companies where profitability creates opportunity, where efficiency creates capacity, where capacity creates growth, where growth creates stability, where stability creates trust, and where trust creates teams that actually want to win together. That's abundance. And that's what I want radical alignment to help create. A manufacturing culture where people don't have to choose between having a successful career and having a successful life, where they can go home at the end of the day and still have something left to give the people they love, where they can build something meaningful at work and still build a meaningful life outside of work. That's the kind of American manufacturing future I believe is possible, and I think it's worth fighting for. So if you're a leader, a supervisor, an engineer, a production worker, a union member, or anyone who believes American manufacturing can be better, come with me. I'm going to keep showing up here every week. I'm going to keep talking about the uncomfortable things, and I'm going to keep challenging the assumptions we've accepted for decades. And I'm going to keep showing you a different path. Because I don't want American manufacturing workers to simply survive their careers. I want them to be proud of them. I want them to build something. I want them to grow, to feel secure, to be part of winning teams. And I want them to go home at the end of the day and still have energy for the rest of their lives. That's the American manufacturing renaissance I believe in. If you believe America can lead the world in manufacturing again, join me. Join the movement.